Welcome to the Some Laugh podcast.
It could be like, oh, that was some laugh, or there was just some laughs.
Some laughs.
Well, no promising all laugh.
No, there's going to be some.
It's some laugh. Alright guys, welcome to this week's episode of Some Laugh. We are doing basically a Edinburgh Fringe special, given the fact that by the time this comes out, the Edinburgh Festival will actually have started.
Yeah.
Starts the 3rd of August, which is the day this will be released. Stuart, you'll have already actually...
Yeah, I'll already be jaded by then.
Yeah, you're starting the 1st.
I'll be crying in Bristol Square by then.
Aye. So what we thought we'd do this week is we're just going to chat a wee bit about the Edinburgh Festival in general, like our last experiences of it, what we're looking forward to this year, just funny stories and gigs and memorable stuff from it. Maybe give a wee bit of a user's guide to the Fringe if you're an audience member that's maybe coming for the first time, or you're a regular Fringe goer, or even comics out there who are listening and maybe are doing their first Fringe or whatever. For like it or not, we are experienced veterans at this point when it comes to doing the Fringe.
Yeah, we peek behind the curtains.
So, in stand-up you often think in like school years, so you guys are a couple of years ahead of me at school. You guys started first. What year did you guys first go to the Fringe?
Well, we done our first Fringe show together,
Yes.
split bill. So I kind of regularly started doing stand-up in like 2013. I'd done maybe
I think
one
it's
gig
2014 we done our first one, I want to say.
So we were about a year and a half had been doing stand-up and then done the Fringe. So,
Yeah. And so the thing is, like, people often, like, if they don't know how it works, like, it's actually quite easy to be able to do the Fringe. Like,
aye,
There's
There's no barriers to entry.
no.
because that was our first show, but I'd done spots the year before, I think, in 2013, or one spot. I remember my first ever Fringe spot, but that we can talk about that later. But,
Aye. Well, do you know, weirdly, the first time I ever went through was on my birthday, which is 11th August, and I'd went through to do a spot, and it was like my 22nd birthday or something. I'd never been to the Fringe before, and I think
Ask that, yeah.
that's actually...
Had you been to the Fringe?
as a punter,
Yeah.
I went to see Bo Burnham
Alright,
in
yeah.
like 2009 or something. But
Oh, really?
it was like me and my mates didn't have a fucking clue what to expect of that. So
No.
we bought this one ticket. It was at like 9 at night.
You get the train through for Glasgow, a couple of cans on the train,
Aye.
you don't know anything about where the fuck you're going.
It was like 9 at night. We'd went through at like 12 in the afternoon and just kind of walked about the streets because we didn't know what to do. Like, we didn't know you could go and see free shows or if we had to buy other tickets for other stuff.
Yeah.
We just kind of cut about the sort of beer gardens and stuff like that
Yeah.
for hours, and then went to see Bo Burnham and then went home.
Aye. No, that's it. And I know there's so much that you could have experienced or
Yeah.
go into that day and you end up doing nothing.
Yeah.
Sitting in a beer garden, all this stuff's going on. You make the mistake of walking up the Royal Mile,
Aye.
thinking that that's where everything is, and turns out you just get fired by a bunch of cunts wearing fucking clown outfits and all that.
And you forget that when you're doing a show that is 90% of people's experience is just drinking in beer gardens. And
It's like when folk go to
tiny
London
part.
and they think it's just Leicester Square.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the Royal Mile is kind of ground
It's
zero for the Fringe.
Eminem's world. That's
Aye.
what Royal Mile
Yeah.
is.
But I would imagine you would have went a few times.
Yeah, it's
before
funny.
doing
It's
stand-up.
always funny to me speaking to Glaswegians that have no concept of it at all,
Yeah.
as if it's the other side of the world.
Well, I used to have that joke. It was like when that Krispy Kreme's place opened up in Edinburgh, and like people, there was like all these news articles, like folk are queuing, you know, across the M8 for donuts, and then it's like we've got the biggest arts festival in the world, and it's like people fucking don't bat an eyelid, they couldn't give a fuck. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
COP26 was like your festival. Yeah, I went when I was like, I mean, I was a big comedy nerd though, but I went when I was like 16, 17, 18.
Right.
Who was the first show you went to see, Stu?
I think, well, originally it would have been like bigger people. Like, I'd seen a couple of like tour shows at like the Adam Smith and Kirkcaldy and stuff like that. And then when I go into the Fringe, I saw like John Bishop one year in like the fucking whatever it is in McEwan Hall. So that was like proper early stuff. But then I would see smaller shows. Like I saw Ian Sterling's first show, I think. It was like in a room like this, tiny.
Did you know who he was at the time or anything?
I think I'd seen him on like Russell
Dog Ate
Howard.
My Homework or something.
You know, what was his show?
Russell Howard.
Where he would have
loads
stand-up
of comics
guests.
on.
I think I just watched a lot of that and saw like stand-ups. And
Yeah.
seek them out.
Yeah.
So I had more of an idea than most Glaswegians anyway. It's
Aye.
more of a thing in Fife to just nip through.
Aye, absolutely. I know. No, it's a bit of a fucking alien concept for a lot of people in Glasgow still, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
and then you go and it's actually quite nice, and like you get used to it, don't you? But because I remember the first time I actually went to Edinburgh, and you do have a pure chip on your shoulder because everything's so different to Glasgow. You're like, this isn't like fucking Glasgow and that sort of stuff. But now I quite like the fact that everything that's cool about Glasgow, I think Edinburgh doesn't have, but everything that's kind of like a lot of stuff that's cool about Edinburgh, maybe Glasgow doesn't have. And I think it's good that they complement each other in that way. But the first year that we done that show, to get back to that, so basically, me and Steve applied to this.
That joke that you were talking about there as well with the Krispy Kremes.
So basically, the first year we done it. So as we're saying, MD can technically apply to the Fringe, and there's a couple of free different versions of the free festival or the free Fringe that you can apply to, and you can get a room for a month for free, basically. But obviously, the quality of that venue is maybe going to be, is going to vary essentially. So that year there was a company called Freestival that were running rooms, and
Don't
so
think they go anymore.
I was going to say that way.
no,
Nah, they folded during the. I think it was
I think it's just literally as our show was ending, they were folding. But so basically, me and Steve had applied, and because of that joke I had with the Krispy Kremes thing, we thought, wouldn't it be funny? Nobody knows who we are. Nobody's going to come and see our show. So why don't we call it Krispy Kremes and Comedy? And we'll try and lure people in by offering them a free donut to everyone who comes to the show.
Yeah. Wasn't necessarily always a Krispy Kreme donut that we'd advertised.
Well, originally we thought we're going to bankrupt ourselves here if we keep having to buy Krispy Kreme donuts. And also at the time, it was before you could just get Krispy Kremes in the wee shelves in Tesco.
Yeah.
You literally had to drive out to that one branch they had, like off the
pilgrimage every day.
Aye, so every couple of days I would actually drive out there and buy more Krispy Kremes to come back. And we only did once or twice, like fill it up with Greg's ones or whatever. But you would notice, because you do a bucket at the end of the show and people give you money when you do the free Fringe, and you would notice, people would give you less money if they knew it was a donut. And actually the profit margins that we ended up getting from doing those shows meant that we could afford to get the Krispy Kremes, and we would see a profit in return effectively. But anyways, we applied to that.
Like a pretty wild week on The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Honestly, Alan Sugar would have been fucking loving it, and not just because his name is synonymous with donuts, but so we'd applied, and they'd actually gave us this room, and it was meant to be in like it was like Phones for You.
That was it.
Because the show was actually going to be called Krispy Kremes for You or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd done like a wee promo video. We'd filmed a wee promo video and saying like the Phones for You thing.
Aye.
And then like 2 days before the Fringe, whatever, had to change the promo video.
Absolutely.
Like, this information is not accurate. Like we've got a new venue.
Well, so basically, so it was a venue. It was that Phones for You shop on Princess Street, and then basically whenever the guys who ran the free festival came up, they looked at it and it didn't meet the safety specs, and so they're like, "Fuck!"
It was in a stock room of a Phones for You. What did
that
they
would have been
think
absolutely fucking wild, man. Imagine waiting to go into a show and the guy's like, "So you happy with your contract? And do you want to upgrade?" Like
gift for exit flyer, and you.
That must be the most wild fucking venue at the Fringe, because you get some fucked up venues at the Fringe, but in a Phones for You, if you actually boil it down and think about it.
Well, I think that's why it never happened.
Yeah.
But so they ended up moving us to this empty shop space in the Prince's Mall, now called the Waverley Mall. And so it's like an empty shop that probably used to be like a Phones for You or something like that. It's just an empty shop space. And so we're basically in the food court of the fucking Waverley Mall. So we're across from the KFC and the fucking McDonald's. And then it's us, and we're like flying folk in the food court to try and get them into a comedy show. And it was absolutely
like
nuts.
From a sitcom that you would believe.
It was absolutely nuts.
But arguably that's a good place, because people are there eating food. We've got donuts.
Yeah.
We're like, if
captive audience.
Don't need to go to a KFC. Come to the show.
We ended up being the only. So there was a whole day of shows in that meant to be in that room, and we were the only show that survived the rest of the run.
Yeah.
Because we were giving away donuts. Because everybody else obviously was struggling to sell tickets to their mad shows and all that stuff. Yeah. So the thing was, though, after a couple of days, they clocked on, and there was like a coffee shop across the way from where we were, and they sold donuts.
Being run into the ground.
So the security guard comes up and he goes, "Guys, you can't be giving away donuts to people because you are doing them out of business, blah, blah, blah." So we need to be like, right. And we're like, this is our first ever Fringe. We're like, we're in a bit of a nightmare of a fucking venue. We can't believe we're getting away with it. And like, we're managing to get people in despite of everything. And I'm like, oh no, they're telling us we can't do the one thing that's getting us an audience in. Yeah. So we had to start smuggling the donuts into the fucking mall.
Prohibition.
So I used to go and buy the like freezer bags for like the Sainsbury's near where I was staying, and I'd put the Krispy Kreme box in one of them and come in, and like we'd be walking about like the corridors like around the back, and it'd just be like folk would be coming by with like trolleys that worked in like the fucking normal shops, and we were just like coming in to do a fucking comedy show. It was insane.
Right round the bowels of the fucking the shopping centre,
Waverley Mall.
and that door right round. Had to sneak in the back.
Were you like making conversation with the other workers? Like,
no, do you know? Weirdly, I never spoke to any of them once, but I'm always just thought they must be like, what the fuck is
going on?
I hate these two guys. You punching in for your 30-minute set.
Absolutely, but they must have known that, like, that they're doing
weird
a
comedy
Fringe show.
gig.
But also that bit of town, really, like Princess Street and all that sort of stuff. That's where you go and basically it doesn't feel like there's a festival on. That's away from really anything to do with the festival. It's just people shopping.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it was so weird.
At least now they've got the bit where folk drink and eat and stuff above that.
That's
but I don't.
true.
Would that have been there? At that
That's
time?
true. No, I don't think that was there at the time.
No,
that's a newer thing.
And the place is now a Chopsticks where we done our show. I like to go a wee pilgrimage there every now and again. It's going, that's where it all started.
We were kind of buzzing at the time. Like, we were like, this is so much better than Phones for You. Oh my god, this is amazing.
See, honestly, it was better than Phones for You, and it's still better than a lot of people's Fringe experiences because of the donuts. We got people in every day, and that's all you want.
But because it was a shop, we couldn't close door. There wasn't doors on the shop.
No, did we not close the shutter?
So we put the shutter down, but you had to press a button to lock people in. It must have been a fire hazard.
Bad.
But without that, it was just loads of nosebleed and people kind of poking their head in. So it was some anonymous shit. Like people sat down and we were like putting this shutter down of a shop. Closing them in.
That meant that Phones for You couldn't have you in the first place. That was probably their health and safety.
Oh, aye.
And then we went into the changing rooms back. Cause I think it was like a Top Man or some shit, and there was changing rooms still there. And we'd play like our music in the phone for the I'm pretty sure it was Clubfoot by Kasabian was our choice for the entrance music, and it was such a wild venue.
There's a picture I took because I remember, because we were buying the Krispy Kremes every couple of days, and we just had them all stacked up backstage. And as it got to the point where it was like higher than Steve,
taller than me, we got a picture. If I put it on.
There's a good picture of me on stage like holding the Krispy Kremes, and it was like must have been a Saturday or something because we got a full crowd in, and everyone was like, "What?" It's like
doesn't get any better than this.
It's absolutely insane. But no, I honestly look back so fondly on that year. It was such a lot of fun, and and basically what we'd do is we would do that, we'd make maybe, I don't know, 30 quid between us on the bucket or something on the way out, and then we'd just go up and, use that to get a couple of pints, and, because our show was at like 3 o'clock or something, so we'd finish and we'd go up to fucking...
exactly.
Go up to the Three Sisters.
Me and Donald used to go to after
our
shows. Yeah.
No, we would usually kind of head into where the actual Fringe was at that point when we were going to Cowgate or, go up to Pleasance or something like that, and then we'd get a couple of pints and see other people doing shows in real venues.
Proper shows.
Venues that have never been a shop.
No. The Gilded Balloon actually started out as a tuck shop, and...
But the thing is, when you realise what the proper venues are, it's like fucking...
They're also just...
offices and shit like that, yeah. Lecture halls and stuff, and it's not a million miles away from what we were doing.
There's very few purpose-built good rooms.
Yeah, there's not many good rooms at the Fringe. Like, everything's kind of every wee corner and nook and cranny.
We're in a steak restaurant this year.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So you think, back in 2014, if you said, you're going to be playing a steak restaurant in 8 years' time, I'd be like,
we're getting closer. Yeah. We're getting closer
to pudding, main. Then we've got a starters restaurant next time.
Yeah. Well, weirdly, I'd actually the venue that we're in this year, I'd actually done a compilation show there a couple of years ago when it was a free Fringe venue, and it was all right, and it's like, and it'll be a lot better this year under the guise of Monkey Barrel Comedy as.
They'll tart
pair these mugs. They're, the biggest problem with that is it didn't have a door before, which they're sorting out, and they'll be basically with the free Fringe.
We have done some gigs in places with doors.
Yes, we have done the occasional gig in a comedy club.
I hope they put in a shutter specifically for it.
That'd be funny. That would be funny. I don't let them out. No walkouts. But no, so this year will be good. And the problem with the free Fringe, and I've done a lot of years at the free Fringe, is like basically. There's never really any staff that do, like, that are doing the door, that are telling people where to go. So people are kind of wandering about, and usually it's down to you and maybe your flyer, if you've got one, to kind of guide people to where to go and stuff like that. We actually did end up randomly in a venue that they do have staff that do it, that Voodoo Rooms that year.
Right. Yeah.
And what was funny,
was a dream for us.
it was a dream for us because
It's a better room.
Better
Still
room.
on the wrong side of town.
It's in a pub, at least. You've got an actual bar
good
and
pub.
stuff.
But
yeah.
Steve, do you remember why we looked out so much that year?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I do.
So we were just doing a show. I think the show generally might have just been called Some Laugh or something like that. Or
It was, yeah.
there's that year. So it was me and Steve doing a show just called it Some Laugh. It's the two of us doing half an hour each. And then basically nobody was coming to see us. It was that part of town. And in that venue in the Voodoo Rooms, it's very specific for like magicians and cabaret acts and things like that. So people go and see stuff specifically there. So we were going to be struggling, but there was one guy in the room next to us, this magician called Dave.
Dave the Magician.
And he was selling out fucking every
Before
day.
Dave the rapper.
Yeah.
It was
Oh.
Dave the magician.
He must have had to call himself Dave the Magician just in case it was some sort of equity sort of thing.
I like that. It's like Cedric the Entertainer.
Yeah.
Dave the Magician. And so people were queued around the block and everyone's Dave, obsessed with Dave and all this stuff. But he would have about 50 people turned away every day because, you know, he's in a small room and, you know, there's so many people coming to see him. So we would just delay the start of our show for like 5-10 minutes and go, oh, well, if you're looking for something to see, we're about to do a stand-up show. And most people would come in and, you know, would see that. And most of the time that run, the shows weren't fun.
No, because it was a magician's audience.
We're putting a disappointed
in a way,
magic
a punchline's
audience.
a trick, isn't it? It's not exactly what they want.
Yeah,
You pretend to find a pound behind the rear.
It's a trick in a way. It's a trick of words. Words trickery.
Did you have donuts that time though?
No, we
That's
didn't
where
need
we
it.
went wrong.
They were fucked basically because they were just like, you know, we were the only show in town.
Get them in with the magic and then give them a donut as a peace offering at the end to sort of placate them after the shit hour they've had.
Pull a donut from behind the rear. There you go.
We'd always get lucky with that stuff. So again, it was like we would get crowds in every day and be able to do the shows most day, which is, you know, is half the battle when you're starting out and just that. So it is tough, like when you're going there, and especially if you're from Scotland and they like all the people are based in London and they don't really know you, even if you're starting to do okay here when you're applying for these spots. But it's that type of luck that we were fortunate to have quite a few times that really does help you get through. And that's kind of the fun part of the Fringe. Like, that's just so random with that Dave thing.
Because it's amazing how low your expectations are of the Fringe. Like, first year we were buzzing because we weren't going to be in the Phones for You. We had this empty shop. The next year it was like
we've got a shop all to ourselves.
Yeah.
we're not in a shop that's functioning, that's still trying to sell phones.
We've got an abandoned shop in Waverley Mall. This is amazing. And then next year you're like, oh, we've got that abandoned building in Cowgate. This is so cool. And then next year it's a fucking restaurant, a fucking Voodoo Rooms. We've got a magician's audience that are going to come to our show. This is class.
Yeah.
You don't realise how low your stakes are.
And it's not always good, of course. You know, there is tough and bad gigs and all that. Have you got any examples of your...
Well, before that, I want to know what your first Fringe was.
Well, I started in 2015. I was a couple of years behind you boys. I'm the whippersnapper of the group.
You are.
And I was definitely there in 2015 because I was doing like comedy competitions and stuff like that. But I think I was just doing the odd spot. And then I think from 2016 I started doing package, like me and Donald would do, like you guys together, we'd do a show.
You done in that building that was below the stand, is that right?
We did Nightcap, yeah. Which is like a nice bar.
Yeah.
And it's like a nice, because it's tiny, it's like 25-30 seats, which is perfect because we ain't selling at a bigger venue. But just wild, like the audiences that come. Like one night, it was full, so we're buzzing, but it was 100% people from Panama.
Really?
30 Panamanians. And I'm like trying to do jokes about Claire Baldwin and shit. And basically what happened was Donald used to teach English to non-native speakers.
Yeah.
And it was just like his class. So obviously they've come to see Donald, but I've got to sift through 30 minutes of my stand-up.
Yeah.
All like these little dark-haired Panamanian women in like their 50s. It was like just really funny to look out.
Sounds cute.
It was pretty cute. Another time, did a gig there, and my own mates got chucked out of my own show.
Oh, God.
Wow.
My friends from home, because at the back of the room there was the chef's pass where he'd put the meals up, and that, and my mate Dale was like nicking, checking.
Oh my
All
god.
my fucking roommates from home
Man,
kicked out.
amazing.
Can't really afford too many people kicked out of a 25-seater venue.
No.
No.
Yeah. So just loads of fucking like gigging to 2 people and shit like that.
So that was your first run, 2016.
First proper run, yeah. And then we did the same at Gilded Balloon. Maybe that was 2017. I can't remember. It's all blending into one now.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the same stories, but in a different bad venue with different bad audiences.
And that's the thing that you can never really like know, is that you will end up just with like completely, especially when you're just starting out and you're just doing the shows to try and improve and get more stage time and stuff. You're basically going to be playing to whoever randomly happens to turn up, and you could be playing to, as you say, like 20 Panamanians or, you know, people for, you know, wherever in the world, or just folk that just are not your audience at all. And you just do it, and sometimes it's actually all right, and then other times it's fucking
low
terrible.
expectations is the key in it.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, exactly. Like this year it's a steak restaurant. Next year, I don't know, could be any other restaurant. You know, we could get a better restaurant than a steak restaurant.
Because you guys, one of your shittest rooms was when you did that show at Vodka Revs.
Oh God!
Aye, we did do a vodka rev show. I
from
forgot about it.
We didn't.
My friends came
we
to see
barely-
the show and it didn't go ahead.
We
and
barely
Yeah, 'cause
ever
we didn't
done
even
it.
show
Aye.
up because people weren't coming, and then for some reason I don't know why people were showing up, but
Sometimes people would show up.
we
aye.
often just like got a phone call from one of our like pals that we didn't know who was going to come through, and like, is your show
Oh,
on
yeah.
today? Yeah, there's like 20 people waiting here
like
for
you
you.
slept in for work.
Yeah, and we'd like run across town to do this shit gig in vodka revs.
I respect that you stopped just turning up. That's funny.
Well, that's the thing with the free fringe, is a bit of a free for all. So like, there's kind of no like, you shouldn't do it like if
No.
you've got the spot on that. But sometimes if you just like, because we were both doing solo
I'd say
shows,
it's
and then,
almost dictionary definition unprofessional.
yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
yeah, it is.
100% unprofessional.
Really bad. But
that-
it was an awful room, and it was
Yeah,
no setup. It was in a vodka revs.
that was pish.
That was pish.
Have you? Can you think your worst gig at the Fringe, Stevie?
I've had a few horrible ones. My first ever one was bad. It was in the Three Sisters,
Aye,
and this was before I'd done a show or anything. It was like 2013, so I'd been going like, I don't know, 6 or 7 months or whatever.
Three Sisters tends to attract a fairly leery audience.
Yeah, so it's quite like late at night.
do you know what? Because the thing about the Three Sisters as well is like, it's kind of like one of the first places you tend to go for your kind of first trip through to the Fringe.
Yeah.
And like, it's
Just
always
sort of
pure.
collects.
Aye, it's pure buzzing. It's all young people and like the stag do's and things and people partying and that go. If you're doing a show there, it's like, you know, it's a bit, and that's not exactly the most ideal audience you're wanting.
No,
But I remember,
especially for a compilation.
You're not
show.
doing a dead dad show at the Three Sisters.
No.
to go back to like that first year though, like when we were doing the donut show in the shopping mall, I remember one night we were in the wee artist bar, and it was me and my mate who I was staying with, Stuart, and like we're like chatting to these lasses, and like they're obviously proper performers and that. Like, oh, so, and they said to Stuart, he goes, oh, so where's Marc performing this year? And he's like, the Waverley Mall. And I was like, shut up! I'm like, and I was trying to big myself up by saying I was in the Three Sisters.
Because I think we were in the Loft Bar one time and talking to like the lassies, and we were also like that. They were like talking about the Pleasance and shit, and I was just like making up stuff, like trying to upgrade myself,
Aye.
thinking,
Being hazy about the
yeah,
details.
just
Were you
some-
gigging? Well, it's not a phone's for you. I can
It's,
tell you that much.
it's definitely not there. It's like it's an abandoned building in Cowgate actually, which is I'm really happy with.
That was a good one.
That was Cowgate Head.
That felt like because it was like literally abandoned, basically. And
Yeah,
the
it's
rooms.
the
It
rest
felt
of the
like
year.
being in an old school or something like that, where
Yeah.
like as a teenager you
It's like
might
one of-
trespass into.
One of those videos you see of someone
Aye.
going into an abandoned.
That was a
like
fucking
one of those
death trap,
horror
though.
VR experiences.
Aye, it was like
It really was.
It must have been a pure death trap. Like, there's no
Oh,
way
yeah.
that was safe.
Oh, big time, yeah.
I remember my mum and dad came to see me there once, and they were pure horrified with the place. And I'm like, right, you just don't get to come back to the Fringe.
I'd actually forgotten before I started doing shows with Donald. One year I just opened for Gareth Much, which opening isn't really a thing at the Fringe.
No.
He like had 45 and he's like, well, you can do 10-15 if you want. And I'd completely forgotten about this, but it was in Woodland Creatures. Do you know that band?
Yeah.
It's literally about
It's a-
80% of the way down Leith.
It's in
We
Leith,
also
aye.
had a show in there for
Fuck, so you
Scram.
did Scram,
For
yeah.
Scram,
Did
yeah.
any of them go ahead?
a couple.
I only turned up to about 2 of them. I was like, fuck this
It
one.
was just a fucking no-go zone. You would never ever go to a Fringe show there.
Yeah.
You'd be as well having a fucking show in Glasgow, man. That's how far away it was.
Yeah, it was awful. It ended up being like me and Rachel doing all the sketches ourselves.
Two-handed play. Me and Marc would turn up.
The two successful actors.
We'd just have a pint and he'd have a fag every night, and then we'd go back up the road. It was like a 40-minute walk down and then back just to like have a pint and a fag with Marchie. And only 2 shows went ahead. Like the first one went ahead to about 5 people that were just like Britain off the bar. Yeah. And then we just have a pint, and then for about 2 weeks I would turn up, coming from Fife every day, by the way.
Oh my god.
Absolute waste of time. And then the only other time it went ahead, it was full of like, there was like a rugby away day on or something.
Oh god.
But I'd been out all night the night before until about 3 o'clock that afternoon, and I've slept in for the gig even though it was at 8:30 p.m.
And you always, it's funny when you say that much. His breaking point was just like, this is rubbish.
Yeah, we'd slag it off. We'd be like, this is fucking shite. This is shite, Stuart. This is shite. This is fucking shite. And then we were just calling it shite every night, and then I knew it snapped me. He's like, this is rubbish. Like it's not even good enough to be shite. It's just rubbish.
It's rubbish.
And we had a big stack of flyers because the people flying. But on my walk from Waverley, I would just see them littered all the way down the pavement. Because like, who's fucking even accepting a flyer in that part of town?
That is a depressing sight that you do see at the Fringe. You see your own discarded face on a flyer on the street.
In a puddle.
Yeah, and ours had got wet because we left them out when we'd been having a fag and pint, and it all congealed. And I just remember him picking up and fucking volleying it and just going everywhere.
So back to this first gig for you, Stevie. So Three
Sisters compilation show. I'd found the gig on the old Scottish forum before it was the Facebook forum.
Well, that was before my days.
And
I hear tell of that.
I'm sure this was like one of the last posts that was
Probably,
posted.
This was the one that did it.
Yeah, this is what killed it.
Final nail.
Found it on there. It was whoever runs the Three Sisters, and then I think they assumed that I'd had a show on or whatever, or had been going longer.
They're like, this guy's not coming through specifically just for this.
And then when I showed up, they were like, oh, so what's your show? We'll plug it and all that. And I was like, I don't have a show. And they're like, why are you doing a compilation show at the Fringe? But I done it to silence, like 5 minutes. I had full room, Maggie's Chambers, quite a lot of people, 120.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Everyone was dying in their arse, apart from the only person who smashed it, who was Larry Dean. He was on, and he ripped it apart.
I'm on with him tonight. I'll tell
him. Good boy, some boy.
Steve's got a compliment for you from 7 years ago.
I wonder. I don't. He probably won't remember it because he would have been doing it so regularly and like it just blend into that. Because that was my first.
No, he does remember because he's told me about how much you done your ass.
But I brought my wee pals along with me and all that, and like they were sitting there, and it was just 5 minutes of fucking silence. Just horrible, but I didn't feel that bad because everyone was dying in their arse, and I thought no one can get a laugh.
Quite liberating when everyone else is dying in their arse.
I thought no one can get a laugh out of this room, and then Larry went on and smashed it. It's like, oh, he's actually good at comedy.
He's a real comedian.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was that's my first gig, one of my worst. But the worse than that is when you do a solo show. To like
an hour silence. Is a very long time if no one's laughing.
And see when you're 5-10 minutes in, you're getting nothing, and that's
sweating.
That's just that you go like, this is the stuff I put at the start to try and get them on board.
This is the good stuff.
This is the hack shit.
And it's not going right, and you go, this is going to be the longest hour of my fucking life.
Oh god, I had a couple of those.
Yeah, we've all had it.
I had one where it was one of the shows that my ma came to see with my auntie, and they've been saying to these people outside, oh, that's my boy and all that, blah blah blah. The guy that they were speaking to was sitting in the front row. As soon as I walk out, before I say anything, he's like, I know your ma. And I was like, what? And he was like, and then I was like trying to get more information, and he was just like that, silent, just not saying anything.
Yeah,
thanks, you weird creep.
So he's just fucking derailed it straight away. Not fucking backed himself up on what his weird claim was. Eventually I found out that he only knew her because she'd spoke to him 5 minutes before entering the building.
Aye.
And then just after that was just such a weird atmosphere. It was like some sort of work night out he was on, and they were all steaming, and it was just really. I also, it was in a room where I was just behind like a curtain, like you're sitting at, Jennings.
Yeah.
I was behind that. The audience are here. and I'm listening to them before the show.
That's
what
always
it's going to be like for us.
So horrible.
Yes.
Like they're walking in going, "Oh, it says he was
Never
in
heard of the
the
cunt."
Scottish Comedian of the Year. That would probably be Frankie Boyle or Kevin Bridges for me. I don't think it would be this week, guys."
No.
And you're like, it's obviously
Think they
a
entered?
competition. They obviously didn't enter, you stupid bald cunt.
For £1,000 and a chance to go to Australia.
So yeah, straight away their expectations are rock bottom. They derailed it straight away. I'm doing a show about living with like a refugee, and it just wasn't for them, and it was just an hour of
Was this when you were
painful-
doing your hour at the Pleasance?
yeah.
Fuck, man.
You never consider that people might be on works nights out or something when you're at the Fringe.
At the Fringe, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that ends
guess
up
the
being the
Pleasance
reality
is
of
more
it. At
place
like
for
a
that,
weekend or something like that, that is who's coming. It's just
Yeah.
going to be people fucking out boozing and all that stuff. And so, like, that's why I feel it must be difficult if you're doing a more personal show or it's about a touchy subject or something like that. Because then you need to perform it on a Friday and a Saturday still, and fucking, you know,
Because you run
all
at like
bets
8
are off.
o'clock or something, right?
8 o'clock,
Yeah, that's prime time
Pleasance.
for wankers at the Pleasance.
Mhm.
If
Big
we're all
time.
in the afternoon, monkey
This
barrel,
year-
you'd think it'd be sound people.
Yeah, this year I'm at half one in
Sound
the
people and
afternoon.
oldies.
If I've got steaming cunts at half one, then I'm quitting.
I don't really mind because I'm not trying to do anything too high floating this year, so
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck, man. I'll just like.
That's true.
I remember first day in 2019, I was on at like something like 5 to 2 in the afternoon.
Aye.
And there was a fucking girl. I mean, they were nice enough, but like her and her mum, fucking steaming. They were
Aye.
drinking like Prosecco. And I was like, with greatest respect, I chose this time slot to avoid this exact fucking
That's
situation.
hilarious, man.
You get stuff like that. You get amazing gigs as well, but
Yeah.
then there are some things that's like weird things that have happened that actually turn out to be quite funny. Like at that show that I'd done at the Pleasance, not that particular show that guy was in, but like the night after,
Yeah.
there was a guy in the front row who had an ankle tag on. And he was like, straight away when I walked out, he was like, "What time does this finish? Because I need to get up the road before 10." And I was like, "Oh my God, what the fuck did you do?" And he was like, "Oh, if I told you that, then it's be quite awkward and all that sort of stuff." And I was like,
Wow.
but people were laughing out of nervousness, I
Sure.
think, but also it was just quite a funny, weird thing to happen. And I enjoyed that so much more, having a criminal in my show
Aye.
than having a baldy cunt in a work night out.
That is be
That's
funny
funny,
as well if you never told you and then the police just fucking bust in like the last 10 minutes of the show.
This wee guy overran, fuck, we're going to get this.
Well, the weirdest thing that ever happened to me on stage was at the Fringe one year, and basically the danger of the Fringe is that you are listed. People know where you're going to be every single day for a month, right?
Yeah.
And especially when you're doing the free Fringe, basically, if somebody doesn't like you, they just come into your show and fucking ruin your day. So what happened to me was during the festival, this lassie came and seen my show with her pals, and then I think messaged me after it. So I was like, "Oh, how's it going?" Like whatever. And we ended up just going for a drink, like a couple of nights after, and so we're hanging out and stuff. And I'll not go into the details. If you want to hear the full story, I did talk about it in Debate and Dating on an episode of my other podcast. But basically, this lassie just, let's just say she was showing a couple of red flags, right? And I was a wee bit of behaviour that.
for one, eh?
Aye, exactly. It's
Well,
the main
exactly.
red flag.
But I just, there was a couple of things that I just, I was like, were putting me off a wee bit, and I was a bit like, and there's one, basically, what?
Do you, can you say what they
Aye,
are?
say a couple.
Aye, right. Basically,
She gave you the ick.
well, I'll just tell you
She
what it
gave
was.
you
Like,
the ick.
the mate, what actually
The
happened
ickies.
was, yeah,
The ickies.
what actually happened was basically the first time we kind of hooked up, she was like trying to get me.
First time, so it wasn't enough of an ick to put him off.
No, well, I'll get to that in a minute. But basically, she was kind of like, when we were hooking up, she was like, going like, "Oh, don't use a condom and all that stuff," and I'm like, "No," I was like, "I'll be using one because you're not any contraception, and that's how you have babies." And so that happened, and I was a bit like, "Oh, it's weird." Anyway, like, I didn't think too much. That wasn't the problem. But then basically, she was out like near my flat where I was staying another night, and then she's like, "Oh, can I come over?" And that, so she ends up coming over, and then like I was like, "Look, I've not got any condoms and stuff like that, so let's not do it." And she refused to leave my flat.
Until
So
you shagged.
yeah, so I didn't.
Fucking hell.
I actually had to go
That's
out
really
and
banging.
get condoms and
Jesus
come back.
Christ.
And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do here? And I don't think we ended up. I think I managed to get rid of her somehow. But basically,
left the
Everyone will be
flat.
hearing the phrase "get rid."
Yeah.
Really, that's
but
not a good sign.
after that, obviously, I'm like,
Squatters'
right,
rights.
I've never fucking seen her again. That was mental, like, and whatever. So, and I remember she'd messaged me, and I remember like looking at it in my phone. I was in bed and looking at it, and then like I read the message, and then I fell back asleep. And then when I woke back up, she sent me another message going, oh, like I'd left her on read, and she's like, oh, well, fuck you then, no replying, whatever. And I was like, right, cool, I don't need to deal with this again. So a couple of days before the end of the festival, I'm doing my show. And as I say, like, people don't, when you do the free fringe, people don't do your door rent like that. Mary-Lane Robertson, who's another comic, she was actually on before me, so she would sort of help just get the crowd in and stuff. But I've not seen who's in or anything like that. So I'm just doing the show about half an hour in. It's kind of wee rummaging at the back of the room. Somebody's phone goes off, and it's that wee Mexican tune, right? And I'm kind of looking to the back of the room, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And I look at the back of the room, and it does look as though someone's wearing a kind of like Mexican hat, and like kind of looks like somebody's wearing sunglasses, and I can sort of see a beard, like. And I'm just like, I'm going, "What the fuck is going on?" And I just sort of felt like something wasn't right, and I just moved on anyway, like, because they didn't really respond when I asked what was happening. And then a couple minutes later it happened again, the same tune went off, and everybody, I could just feel there's a weirdness in the room. And so I was like, are you guys alright? And then I was like, no, you're saying earlier about Panamanians. I was like, maybe it's just somebody that's come in, they don't speak English, or maybe just in the wrong show, they want to leave.
They're dressed as a racist stereotype.
Yeah. Stereotypical Mexican person's walked into the...
It's like there's a gig on in Thailand and they're all in kilts.
But do you know what I mean? I was just trying to sort of, if there was anything, I was just going, listen guys, see if you need to like go or anything, it's no bother, I don't mind, like, it's, it's, don't worry about it, but just like, whatever.
Like, fuck off.
And then, so again, didn't really get a response. And then because the show had been interrupted, I just ended up telling a story that had happened that day. And coincidentally, it had been the day that we'd been to see a show, me and Stevie. And basically the performer was talking about ghosting in the show, and she goes, does anyone not know what ghosting is? And me and Steve clocked this wee old guy in the crowd who like just put his hand up going like that. And he's like, oh, my wife's a ghost, is that what it is? And the performer never seen him and just moved on, and we were pure sitting pissing ourselves just at that wee guy, just pure confused. And he'd been so brave to like admit he didn't know, and he just didn't put his hand back down, and it's such a shame. But
Hans Moleman guy.
Yeah. So I just told that story basically, right? Unbeknownst to me, someone who I did ghost was up the back of the room. So next thing, fucking, I just hear, fuck you! And like, they spray me with a water pistol. They've got a water pistol. They spray me. It actually, like, I managed to sort of dodge it, and all the water hits the back of the wall. Like
over backwards.
This is what my training's been for. But it hits all the kind of back of the wall. But they're like, fuck you, and they run out. And then, so obviously, me and the entire audience are like, what the fuck just happened there? And I didn't see who it was, right? And so I'm just like, oh my God. And I'm just thinking, somebody's just decided to come into a random show and do that just for a prank or a laugh or whatever, right? So I'm just like, fucking hell. So, reacting to that for a couple of minutes. And then I need to do the rest of the show, finish it up. And then when
how far into the show?
It was probably about 3/4 of the way through.
Right.
And then, so I do the last
I wonder if anyone else in the audience thought it was like some Darren Brown shit that you were trying to
Well, the thing is, because when you do at the end, when you do the free show, when you do the bucket speech, like, you sort of ask for money and stuff. And so I was saying, I was like, and listen, please, be kind, because I need to pay the folk to come in and spray me with a water pistol every day and stuff like that, and made a joke out of it. So then the show ends, and I go down, and I'm like, fucking can't believe it. I'm saying to the security guard and the bar staff, I'm like, you'll never believe what happened to me during my show. Like, somebody came in and they sprayed me with a water pistol. And then the security guard's like, oh, water pistol? Aye, they're just outside. And so I look outside, and it's the lassie. And I'm like, fuck. So I went up to her, I'm like, what the fuck you doing? And she's like, you never text me back. And I was like, this is the sort of behaviour, which is why I never text you back. And then I was just like, fuck's sake. So like,
that is fucking
she had this wee toy water pistol. So I think I've still got it in the house. And I took it over, and then she's like, buys a drink. So I bought her and a pal were fucking steaming. I was like, right, bought them a drink. And I'm like, right, see you later. Last ever seen of them.
What an insane fucking thing to do, man. It was mental.
And now she's electronically tagged.
I would not be surprised, but
that is fucking nuts. I've never heard of anything even remotely similar to that.
No, that's fucking crazy.
But the bad thing for me is, like, I sort of go like, oh, if people see that happened to me, they must think I've done something to deserve it. But I didn't.
It's a disproportionate response.
It's a disproportionate response.
She was acting mental and then done something even more mental.
Yes.
Because you didn't want to deal with her being mental.
But I'll tell you what, man, you know, I've not got a better story about something that's happened to me on stage. It was a good laugh.
Long before the Oscars.
Oh, aye.
And I suppose I mean, I've heard a lot worse horror stories that can happen to you on stage, like people getting glasses thrown at them and shit like that. At least it's a wee bit of water, you can
Thank
dry
God.
yourself off.
That's why I'd always be scared to gig in America, because they have real guns there. Do you know what I mean? Somebody wants to shoot you. To go back to what you're saying about like the shite gigs in the hour thing, like see the first hour I done in 2019, it was like people, you know, I'd started to put videos up online and people were coming to see me and stuff like that. So at the end of the show, I would always go out and just like, you know, shake everybody's hand, say thanks for coming, that sort of thing. And there was 2 nights during that run that went so badly that I felt like I got absolutely no laughs for an hour. And I was so demoralised. And it was twice like that. I remember the first night and I thought I'm just going to do it anyway. And then the second night I'm like, there's no way that I can go at the end.
2 in a row, was it?
Like, no, I wasn't 2 in a row, but it was like 2 within the run. And I was like, there's no way that I can face these people after it. But do you know what? For some reason, I just went and done it anyway. And I just stood there. And then some people come like, I really enjoyed that. Oh, that was great. And I could not believe it. Because I was like sitting going, that was one of the worst things that's ever happened to me in my entire life.
Yeah.
It was just performing to silence for an hour.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that they enjoyed that. But
you forget that folk do silently enjoy things.
But do you think they genuinely do?
Maybe they're saying that, I don't know.
This boy needs it, he looks fucking
I think there's people that
Yeah.
definitely didn't, obviously in those ones, but there is people that did seem to. But we sometimes when we as comics, you go to an art comedian show and we notoriously don't laugh when you've been exposed to too much comedy.
But you can appreciate what they're
But
doing.
you like even if you see it on a day that the audience on the up for it, you still like the show. So I guess there's something to that, but there's no worse feeling than fucking dying in your ass for an hour.
I like you still coming out and facing up to like when a manager gets relegated and he's out in the pitch in the last day.
I am still going out and going, no, I'm like the captain's like saying to the other players like, no, they've paid to see us.
We're going to strengthen for next season.
Yeah. But that was because like the time that I was saying about that guy and when my mom was there and all that, and because beforehand they'd been saying about like, oh, who's this wee guy? It's not Kevin Bridges or that. Like, because I could hear them through the curtain on the way in, I was like worried about what they're going to be saying in the way out. So behind the curtain, I just put my fingers in my ears. Yeah, just put my fingers in my ears for like 5 minutes just in case. Fucking worst feeling ever.
I'd have done the exact same.
Worst. Aye.
Well, that's it. When you're behind the scenes as a performer, like sometimes you go, "Oh, it'd be good to get an insight into who's in," but actually, there's nothing to be gained for listening to what people
especially when you've got a
in.
show that you need to do. It's not like you're in a club. You can gauge the room and be like, "Well, I'll do this, this, and this, and I'll drop that, or whatever." But you just got to do the show and hope they're not cunts.
100%.
This sounds too convenient to be true, but I remember being in the Pleasance Courtyard in 2019. I was like, just having a piss. I was going to see a show, and I was looking at an audience filing in for a show. And they were fucking steaming, and there was like an argument and stuff. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I wonder whose show that is. And I looked at the board, and it was yours. I text and be like, "Fucking good luck, son. Have a good one."
Did I tell you if it was good or bad?
Total wankers.
Because there was there was loads of weird fucking gigs at that Fringe. Because there was one night where a person was so steaming that they'd like kind of fallen back the way because it was like benches.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what something had happened in the queue. Like everyone looked fucked anyway, but also there was an incident of some kind. So like maybe it was that.
Aye, they would like in that room that was benches, so there was no back. So like someone had fallen backwards into like the curtain, and like because they were so steaming, and then there was another guy shouting "Shut the fuck up" because people were talking, but I couldn't hear them, so I thought he was saying "Shut the fuck up" to me,
and I was.
And I was like, you paid the money to come and see me. You don't tell me to shut the fuck up. And he's like, no, I'm talking to them at the back. They're steaming. And then they kind of left. This woman just stumbled out and tried to go out the door, which was there. But instead of going out the door, she walked behind the curtain, which was just blacking out the walls.
Oh my
God. Like these curtains, she walked behind that instead of going out of the door. And it's just such a fucking bizarre, weird thing. And this is it, like the Pleasance, where you're paying. I lost like $4,000.
I tell you what we had at the Prince's Mall. Cheers with fucking backs
exactly. Aye, at least that. At least you make money for doing a free show.
The Pleasance for you in terms of like finance is the second disaster before what's happened with the house last week and the carpet and everything like that. Just
that's
different ways of spunking $4,000.
Financially, at least the couch, I'll only lose like 400 quid. Like the Pleasance, I done so that run. I sold out every show.
Well, this is maybe just get into this by saying so. What actually happened the year before this was that Steve won the BBC New Comedy Award.
A lot of buzz, industry buzz around the guy.
Yes,
Yeah,
we were staying in the same flat that year, and I was absolutely buzzing because I actually had to go and do your show for you. This another thing you do during the Free Fringe. We were both. I basically filled in for Steve, so people would come to see Steve. I just had to do it because he was doing the fucking BBC New Comedy Award final. And so as I'd finished that, I was like walking back to the flat listening. The fucking results come in, and then like go back to the flat, and it's like, and the winner is Stephen Buchanan, and I'm like,
yeah, I said my name wrong, but fuck it, still won it.
But that
all
was
our
such a
pals
buzz.
listening in on the day in different parts of Edinburgh, like you're listening to the Grand National or something, like some like old,
Like super scoreboard.
yeah, we're fucking buzzing, man.
But
That's right. And then
that
it was like
was
the
so
loft
great.
bar afterwards. You were all there. It was like it was a class
It
night.
was great, man. I
And
remember
then-
lifting you in the air.
That's right. And then the next
Well,
morning,
we've come a long way for fucking Bunt and
Championes.
Krispy Kremes.
then the next morning, hungover in Greg's. You walk back like to.
It was like when I saw you in your flat.
In my flat,
I
yeah.
went in Greg's, fucking Steve.
Me and Catherine looking at sandwiches. He's like double taking. Like, why are you and Greg's just won the new comedy award?
I know there's a cash prize. You can do better than Greg's.
You need to go and do the fucking press run in the radio in the morning shows.
Aye, I was still steaming because we were out till like 4 or 5 in the morning. Had to get up at 7 to do these interviews, like with Radio Lincoln and all this
You
stuff.
talking to Jeremy Vine and shit.
Aye,
hanging at
like
your
these
balls.
mad. Hey, so what's your biggest influence in comedy? And I was still fucking absolutely steaming off my tits. Like,
You're telling me into Greek mythology and that shit.
So obviously the following year, that's how you end up with Pleasance Courtyard, sold out show.
sold out show. That's essentially what you're rewarded with is getting a good venue, like one of the big four. You know, you've got like Pleasant, Skilded,
Assembly.
Assembly, and Just the Tonic.
Underbelly,
Underbelly.
yes.
So like one of the big four, where you get to pay them hundreds of money.
Yeah.
You get to lose money.
Well,
and cunts come and see
Traditionally,
Yeah,
the punt. Traditionally, the punt at the Edinburgh Festival has been so you go to the Fringe and you pay for PR and you pay to get into the Pleasance, and you know you'll lose money, but the punt is that by being in, say, like the Pleasance Courtyard with the PR behind you and a bit of industry buzz, you know, you'd maybe get somebody for the telly in to see you.
Yep.
They'll then put you on the telly.
Put you in live at the Apollo or
You
whatever.
know, you'll make the money back. You'll end up, become a household name. You'll sell tickets and you'll go on tour, and that's
It's a loss leader.
It's a loss leader. So that's it. So you take a bit of a risk on yourself by losing a bit of money to hopefully get that return. The interesting thing nowadays is though that kind of whole thing still operates, but obviously nowadays there's plenty of comics that have been on live at the Apollo, but it doesn't turn you into a household name, doesn't necessarily sell you tour tickets because obviously everybody's now kind of looking online and people aren't watching the telly as much. So the whole way that the Fringe operates and has operated in those senses, in terms of the industry and stuff, is changing, and it's in a bit of a state of flux. And it was becoming obvious before, like even that year in 2019, like because we actually had a kind of weird experience where you had that. I was at the stand and I sold out my run. And I made basically about as much money as you lost because I sold all my tickets online. I didn't have any PR. I didn't even have flyers or anything. But because I'd put out videos online and I'd built a wee following there, even though no reviewers were coming to see me, nobody really gave a fuck. Like in the industry sense of that, I was no cunt for Live at the Apollo was coming to see me. But I was able to sell the tickets, and already it was like becoming a like hanging like, oh, this is interesting. Or even though I would have loved to have had all that stuff and being, and you still would like a go on it, but it's just, and it's interesting how that it was already starting to become obvious. And for me particularly, I would say COVID and that gap in between really made you question the way that you're doing it. So I think now doing the Fringe, you need to have a really good reason for doing it, I think.
And it should be like you've done a month of shows. You should be making money. You should be making that amount of money from it.
And obviously, there's an argument as well. Like, it shouldn't be about the money. It should be about the artistic merit of it all and getting better. And
of course, but you're still.
Well, it can be both, and you're still working.
It's still your work. It's still your job. You're still.
Imagine going to work for a whole month and being charged $4,000.
$4,000.
But it's funny though, because see, when we would start going to the festival, you'd see all the big posters, everybody, and you'd always go, "Oh my god!" Like maybe one day that'll be me having a big poster of myself on the fucking street, and like these people are big stars. Now when I look at those posters, I go, Wonder how much that fucking skinned them.
I was in Edinburgh yesterday, and there's just a huge poster of Henning Venn, but it's on the cowgate, but it's behind all these big bins. And you can only see the top of his head like that.
That's insane.
That's the anti-German sentiment that is still prevalent in the UK.
No, we're lucky this year to be. I was at Monkey Barrel in 2019 as well, and that was very fortunate because I didn't sell out every seat, I don't think, but I sold well and I made money, and like they look after you. So it's nice to have the lads in.
Absolutely, we should say shout out to Monkey Barrel and, to be fair, The Stand, who both are very good deals financially for performers.
Mm-hmm.
Monkey Barrel coming along the last couple of years is certainly this year giving us all an opportunity to basically be able to do it when otherwise it might not be financially viable for us to do it, or you'd end up in a fucking shitey wee, free fringe venue or something like that.
And they curate really good lineups as well. I'm not just saying that because we're on it.
Well, most comics...
Everyone wants to be there.
Like, up and down the UK want to be at Monkey Barrel because it's a cracking location, they're brilliant venues, great deal financially, they're great and audiences love it and all the rest of it, so...
And I don't know, because
fortunate.
I'd mentioned like the big four as they're called before, but like Monkey Barrel, that's not included in that, and it should be, because it's like
they're a disruptor.
The big four is like the English Premier League, though. It's like Arsenal in the big four, but they're fucking shite and they've been for ages.
Monkey Barrel, like they're like the Tottenham or something like that now. Like they're kind of hanging into the other city, I suppose. Like they're getting into the big four now.
So
without the blood money, I should.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know. We don't know that for certain.
I think they're ethical. I think Monkey Barrel.
All I'm saying is I'm going
they
into
could be playing better weekends if they're backed by the Saudis. That's all
I'm doing a tour in Riyadh in September. That's a new Soho theatre.
It wouldn't be any worse than Woodland Creatures, to be fair. In terms of fringe
closer
location.
to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Monkey Barrel's like, and even The Stand that you were mentioning there, if you've got an audience like you sold all your tickets before the Fringe, you could make loads of money, like you should.
I mean, I was doing a 40-seater venue, wasn't it? As if I'm selling out the fucking Hydro, but like,
no, but like
sell it, bro.
You're like you said, you made like probably like the amount of money that I lost from like a 40-seater venue.
Yeah.
I was doing maybe like 50, 60 seats, lost that $4,000. Sold out every show, added 2 extra shows. Like it's just insane.
It just doesn't make sense on any level.
And that's why people like mention about, it's not viable or like accessible for working class comedians and stuff like that. It's like they've just been priced out of it.
We're fortunate to be up here as well. I mean, if you're a working class comic down south, I mean, you're fucked up.
Well, that's it, because I mean, like the first couple of years, you were staying with your cousin John, I was staying with my mate Stuart for like free in like Meadowbank for a couple of years.
I've never paid, I've always stayed with friends.
So like that is one of the big advantages of being a comic in Scotland, is that if you've got a pal that stays in Edinburgh, or even like my ex like had put us in touch with people. She'd been at Edinburgh Uni and she'd basically put us in touch with students who'd gave us some flats for really cheap. But we would always scrimping and scriving to get by and doing the fringe, like doing the free fringe, and then fucking getting lucky being on next to Dave or whatever. Like we'd all are getting decent times and being able to get folk in off the street.
Yeah.
So it was like a kind of like, that's how we'd been able to do it all these years, and like now we're been doing it long enough, and we're lucky enough to be at a point where we're doing okay, cost of living notwithstanding, but
exactly. I'm still selling a couch.
Still selling a couch for last 6
years.
years.
Weave that into my bucket speech this year. I've been talking about having a personal trainer for 15 minutes.
But no, that is, but for a lot of working class comics are going to be priced out, particularly if even if you're from Manchester or obviously in London or anything like that. Like it's it's a tough thing, and the more things go the way they are with online stuff and all that, it might just not be worth it to do it if you're an up and coming comic. You might be better putting fucking videos out on TikTok or Instagram or whatever.
Often you are, really.
Well, we've already kind of discovered like over the years that it's not the place where you're going to get picked up from this big producer or big agent or whatever. Like you could, but
it's still possible.
You're more likely to get picked up if you've putting out social media videos and having a successful podcast or whatever. Well,
that's it. But that's how we're going to try and we're going to keep this rolling during the festival, because fucking we're getting more people listening per week than we'll probably see the entire month of August.
Exactly, and that's if you are doing stand up and you've got some shit like mad jokes you want to say or whatever, and you can't afford to go to the Fringe. The best way to do it is do it online and put it out that way.
Well, that's why this year I like my show. Like, I've just called it Original Sound, because that's like the wee thing that comes up on TikTok. Because I'm like, look, these days what I do is I work up material, I do it on stage, I'll film it and I'll put it out as clips or whatever. And really, that is what I'm doing the Fringe for. It's like just I'm going to be like what I'm working up a new show, and it's probably all going to end up on TikTok or whatever, or maybe a longer special I'll put on YouTube or something at some point.
Yeah.
But like that's really the whole thing. So like, but the weird thing about the Fringe as well is not only that financial side of it, but it was like comics would, you know, you'd go about the country all year doing like shows at weekends to fucking stag do's or just to, you know, to people out having a drink and all that, and you'd basically just, it was all about trying to be funny, and that's the job.
Yeah.
And then every August, all of a sudden, everybody's to become like fucking Harold Pinter, and all of a sudden got to put on these, like, you know, this one-man show with a structure and an arc and a narrative and all that. And so, like, just to the point where it's like, you know, it's a bit of a square peg in a round hole, I always thought, because like the rest of the year, you're doing something different to the thing you're expected to do in August. It took us years to figure out, because like it's more of a thing, it's an English thing, it's a middle class English thing to an extent, or at least a middle class thing, like, because it's from the theatre world, all these sort of ideas, and that's where that comes from. And in Scotland, there's no, like, it just doesn't exist. Like, and you basically find out in London, people preview these shows and they do loads of previews throughout the year, and that's how, and they probably don't even need to rely so much on like money for the circuit gigs, because you'd go and see some, and don't get me wrong, I love all these shows with narratives and structures, and they're brilliant, and some of the best shows I've ever seen have been at the Fringe, they type of shows. But I remember when we first started going, and like we'd just be doing open spots at the, you know, in the clubs and pubs and all that sort of stuff, and you'd go and see these unbelievable shows at the festival that are like totally like so far removed from like kind of traditional stand-up, and then you just go, how the fuck do you ever work that up?
Yeah.
How do you practice that? How
You're not
do you
squeezing that in the middle five of a club set?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
Maggie's Chambers 5 minutes, but you're doing every heartbreaking story at the end.
And it takes you years to figure out how it all kind of works, and especially when we're up here where there's no real industry, it doesn't exist to that extent. So I'm talking from my experience. I don't know if it was different for you, Stu or Steve or whatever, but like I certainly wasn't aware of all that, and it's only been over years that I've figured out, all right, okay, so people like they do all these previews in London and around, you know, there, and they build it up, and so by the time they go to the festival, they've tried out this full length show maybe 30, 40, 50 times, and then they can do this thing that's so avant-garde, you know, or whatever, and that's where you can get like where it can be really good. But for me, I don't know, it's just like it's not the type of comedy that I necessarily like got started to try and do. And I respect it, and I'd love to be able to do those type of shows going forward, and probably I will, but just at the moment it doesn't seem like the best. It's not what I'm looking to do at the moment.
It's like you say, it's like nowadays you're putting out a clip for like TikTok or whatever, and it's funny, wee clippable bits, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's more what you're trying to push now, rather than like this big narrative.
And see, be honest, I've always quite liked that. I've just liked really good bits.
Yeah.
And like, and somebody just being able to have a strong bit in it. And I think American stand-ups in particular, like the specials that they would always put out, the kind of ones you'd watch growing up, they were always just like an hour of really funny stuff. And even the likes of like Bridges or somebody like that, or like a lot of the kind of more mainstream UK acts, it is just like a really, really funny hour, 90 minutes of stuff. And you know, but there's guys like James Acaster, who I think probably has perfected like the balance between like observational stand-up and these brilliant, well put together shows with narratives.
Shows at the Fringe and like Cabaret Bar and stuff like that. I used to go and just blew me away. I've got really old-fashioned romantic ideas of like doing Edinburgh shows and stuff like that. It is all still bits and just jokes, and there's no real sad bits whatsoever, but I do like trying to craft like an actual show.
100%.
So it's going to be a lot harder to break it down for 30-second clips, but that's part of the challenge and the appeal. I know it's not the smart way of doing it. But your way is the smart way, but I just quite like it.
But there's a lot of merit to doing that. If that's, I think it's as long as you're doing it for the right reasons, because there's, you know, the best shows of that kind are always the ones that are, you know, are done for those right reasons, because you're wanting to do a show like that.
I just like them, it's just what I want to do.
It became a bit, I feel like sometimes it'd be a bit cynical with the Fringe, and me and you
when
probably
you see a
even
cynical one, it's really bad.
Like even with me and you, like our last Fringe shows, like you kind of do try and tack on this sort of thing to make it all feel like a rounded, you know, like kind of thing, which isn't always a bad thing, but you would just see people that know, because of the pressures of the industry, and the PR person would tell them, right, you need a thing, make it about this, make it about that. You know,
40-minute mark is the wee sad story or whatever.
Yeah, you sort of, you know, you try and commercialise or whatever, like some sad thing that happened in your life, and then, you know, try and make it as though the bits that you've got from stand-up are about it and all that stuff. And again, sometimes some of those shows can be absolutely brilliant, like when done, I think, in the right way for the right reasons. But for every amazing show you see, like an Acaster, or, you know, your Richard Gadd or somebody like that, you see a lot of folk trying to do it
doing a bad version
badly. And listen, hey, we're all guilty of doing bad versions of stuff sometimes. But it's an interesting thing, and for me personally, I'm glad that it's swinging back towards the other way, where if you can just have like good bits and you can clip them up and that, that you don't need to feel the pressure. So that's why this year I'm like totally not even trying.
Yeah.
But as I say, in future I would. It's not something that I would never want to do. It's just that at the moment I'm still just trying to get better at writing jokes and bits and try to build up myself to the point where, you know, maybe when I've got a bigger phone, I can tour and all the rest of it, I can do these shows that have got a lot more structure and substance and narrative and all that to them.
Mm-hmm. Aye, and because what you were saying, like, that's what you like and stuff, but it's like, as bringing it back to like James Acaster,
I also like, you know, Bridges or whatever, you know, like
yeah.
solid stand-up's better than shit theatre.
Aye.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's also hard enough to write solid stand-up without all the fucking subtext and, you know, like, as I say, like your Harold Pinter, like a fucking playwright or whatever.
Aye, but like doing like you say, James Acaster has really funny bits in amazing structure, and you could easily see his bit about, you know, like a cheese grater on TikTok out of context, and it still fits into the
which
narrative.
is what he would do. He would take
exactly.
take bits for those shows and do them on live at the Apollo, and they'd be great bits in of themselves.
And I think that's the same as you. Like, you've got funny bits as well as doing like nice structure and that. I don't think you're like of the end of the spectrum where it's just
it's just stand up.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing stand up with a nice structure,
but it's well thought out as well, your stuff, Stu, which is the good thing.
Thanks, man. Well, we'll see what happens. I've not got any fucking previews left.
But anyway, so it's interesting to see how it all goes. So that whole, because you did feel a pressure to sort of bow to that kind of style of comedy.
It is swinging back, I think. And it went too far. Well, not too far. That sounds like I'm trying to be some right wing reaction. It didn't go too far, but just it almost got a bit exhausted, I think. That's what everyone was doing.
Well, when you're kind of like, you would have meetings sometimes with people and they would sort of try and suggest to you to like mine your trauma, or, you know, has anything bad ever happened to you that you could talk about, blah, blah, blah. Because, and to be fair to them, it's like, you know, especially if you're a fucking, you know, a straight white male or whatever, you've not really got a sort of USP that, why would you get any press?
Why would anything bad happen to you?
Well, exactly, that's it. But, you know, it's like, I suppose that's their job to try and find an angle, but
that's because I'd met like a PR person, and she was like, oh yeah, have you like been touched as a kid or something like that, like essentially putting it straight on the table, not even dancing about it. Like, have you got something like
I'm throwing my parish priest under the bus here. Do that, Father Tatalia, rest in peace, big man. He never touched me up, by the way.
But like, someone putting it on the table like that so cynically and being like, I can't sell you unless you're talking about getting fucking touched as a kid.
Absolutely.
In a comedy show, it's like, if you've got an hour of good jokes, that won't sell you. That won't sell tickets. Sorry.
There has been good shows about people who got touched up as a kid, but it's never started by a PR sitting down across them.
No, exactly.
Going, well, there was a great one last year. Have you got one?
Exactly, that was it. That was such a cynical way of doing it.
Yeah, I know. So that's in that way. That's why I'm glad that it swung back. That you don't need to do that sort of thing anymore. But it's hopefully going back to a kind of like, just, you know, you're doing it for the sake of the comedy itself rather than all that type of thing.
And being at Monkey Bar on that, knowing that all things being half decent, you'll make some money. That gives you some artistic license to stretch your feet a little, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think you're like, the way that they've set it up, I don't think you could lose money at Monkey Barrel unless you've got like fucking huge billboards and shit like that you're paying out your own pocket. But
you've not seen my poster right next to Henning Wentz.
Marc's is on the back of the bin. Philosophical question that relates to the Edinburgh Fringe.
Is there a philosophical?
If
Would you rather, you know,
I think the only one that would really apply to the Fringe is the whole if the tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it. If you do the best,
falls and phones for you.
if you've got a brilliant show and no one sees it,
Is it
which
a brilliant
fucking
show?
happens.
I tell you what though, that is a thing, and I bet you loads of comics feel like that. Like they feel like kind of they're invisible, or that, you know, they're overlooked because like you can't. There's so many shows, and it's like unless you have kind of paid for the PR and you know you've got the sort of buzz, like you know the chances you'll even get reviewed are pretty marginal. Do you know what I mean?
I wouldn't expect many reviews this year.
No.
There's like a million debuts as well for them to wait through.
Well,
I'd
that's
be surprised
because of the backlog for COVID. Like a lot, the best newcomers always like a big deal at the Fringe, and this year there's more than ever. So I don't envy anyone going for the best newcomer this year because you know it's going to be a crowded marketplace for sure.
Yeah,
I'm not cynical about any of this at all, and I think you've just got to like look at the lay of the land, and that's kind of what I'm doing. And for me, I'm going, I'm not getting any PR. Like people are coming to see me and I'm selling tickets, so I'm just going to do the show for the audience rather than, you know, the industry, which is what you should be doing anyway. But I'm like, I don't really suspect I'm going to be getting a lot of reviews, so
So far, you don't need them. I mean, you've already won basically. You have an audience.
Well, I'm on my way. I don't know if I'm quite there yet,
You're in
but
the top
from
1%,
misery
man.
to happiness today.
I would say I would say though that it's good because it's liberating in that sense because I think with the Fringe sometimes you feel like, right, the show is this pristine thing and you can't change a word and you need to do it the same way every day because it's the show. Whereas like for me, I'm like, well, I can still change things up every day and try jokes a different way.
Which is what stand-up is, because when you go to a club on a Saturday night, you're not doggedly stuck to whatever you
Exactly.
planned. You can let things happen.
And even the concept of like so many people at the Fringe go, right, this show this year is about this.
Yeah,
You don't ever need to do that in stand-up normally, and I think it's an alien concept to a lot
that is
of...
bad storytelling, isn't it? Well,
Aye.
if you go to a film and it's like, this film is about this, you'll be like, this is going to be shite, innit?
Yeah.
And I've been guilty of doing that and all. Like when I've done like 45-minute shows and stuff, I've been like, so my show's about
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
And we all, but that's just like sort
I'm
of...
toying with the idea of doing that.
Well, I
Actually,
think...
You do you.
I was speaking to Liam about this. Liam, a friend of the show, he was giving me notes on one of my last previews. I gave him notes, and he said I should do that. And he was like, you know, it's like if you see a movie, if you see a slide at the start of a movie that says, you know, this is a film about, he's like, that's really cool. It's like an art house thing.
Liam,
So I'm trying to decide
you know
who knows
nothing
more about
film.
films. You or Liam.
Well, nah, I don't think that's good storytelling.
Also on our podcast, sorry to be too inside baseball,
Not at all.
but we're always saying tell us, don't show.
Aye, throughout, not at the top. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Here's my question though, like, so see if you do feel the need to say that, is it for the audience or is it for the reviewers?
For
Or
me,
is it
it's for
for
a
you?
callback.
Fair enough. Because I actually wouldn't want to, but I had a reviewer I let a reviewer come in to see one of my Glasgow shows a while ago, and they were it was a nice review, but the one thing they said is it doesn't all fit in together, and I'm like, well, I'm not trying to, I'm just doing bits, and so I think I will need to say at the start of the show, just in case I'm by the way, this show's not about anything.
I
I think that sets people at ease, though.
Yeah, that's like a kind of almost a meta thing of going, by the way, my show isn't a pure big structured show, it's just bits. So
And then
just,
before you know it, you're getting laughs for all the shit segues you've got between.
Absolutely.
talking about
yeah.
cars
But
and pickles.
and usually there's a way to tie it in and make it seem like it kind of comes to a nice ending anyway. But I just think, part of me like resents having to be meta at all. I like to just be a guy on stage being funny, and then that's it. It's just, you know, I don't like the meta of it as much.
I think for you in your final evolution, it'll be old Haggard Jennings in a suit and tie, drinking like a cocktail or something, and just doing his fucking bits and getting out of them.
Talking about my mother-in-law. Take my wife, please.
I was thinking more like American style elder statesman, kind of just like pure stand up.
And well, hopefully so.
That'd be a cool vibe.
Yeah. What would you be?
I'd like retrain as a gardener. Or something. A job in a garden centre, chill out.
Aye,
I don't know.
Stuart will be a Fringe favourite. He'll be like a Daniel Kitson go-to.
Yeah.
You need to see this guy.
I
He's
would
off
lo-
the
I
grid.
would, I would
Aye.
love that.
Yeah, he doesn't post
I'm
on
fucking
TikTok
done with this
or anything.
podcast when I can sell out.
Let me
100
ask.
seats.
Let me ask you this: what's the best Fringe show you've ever seen?
Good question. There's a few. I think the James Acaster one that I saw was the first one of his. I can't remember what it's called on the Netflix one, but it's like maybe this first one or the second one. I remember just my mind being blown.
Was that the one about jury duty?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the second one.
Unbelievable.
Because we seen that at, like the Oranmore out with the Fringe.
And when he took it on tour in Glasgow, and that is, apart from his most recent show, that's like one of my favourite shows I've ever seen.
David O'Doherty's last show I saw was sensational.
Aye.
Just funny.
Just
the whole
so
way
funny, but also like really just saying a lot about life, but in such a light way where he was never making a big deal about anything.
Yeah.
And then the next night I went to see like a theatre show that had been like 5 stars across the board. Everyone's like, oh, this is the best show ever. And it just felt really laboured to me of like making it like, oh, this is so about life and like we're all really thinking. Whereas to me, his show said more about life than that show.
Yeah.
But just it did it in a covert way that people didn't even realise.
Aye.
And it was just funny as fuck.
I don't know what my favourite one is. Like seeing Bo Burnham before he kind of blew up was quite cool.
Yeah.
And like the Pleasance Dome, he was doing like a wee 40-seater. That was quite a cool experience. That was like the first show I'd went to see as well.
Kate Berlant I saw a few years ago. Do you know her? She's brilliant. She does like this sort of it's improvised crowd work kind of stuff, but that kind of undersells it, which is like, it's brilliant. It's like magic. It's really funny though.
I've seen like John Cairns.
That is actually the answer. I'd forgot about that.
He is amazing, and it just goes to show you as well. I'm fucking moaning about all this stuff, but those type of shows, the narratives that are like more fringy shows are brilliant. I feel there is ones I'm forgetting about for sure, but I just think that you can just see some fucking incredible stuff there.
Mm-hmm. First time I seen Rhys James at the Fringe was a class. So he done like a 45-minute show that was amazing, just constant, and that was in Maggie Chambers.
He would always be like the first thing we would buy tickets for. Rhys James, he's brilliant. He's one of my favourite comics, and for my money, best person on Mock the Week since Frankie. But
and he's consistently brings really good shows.
Amazing, aye.
And Sean McLaughlin as well. I've seen him a few.
Finn Taylor's was one of the best when we went to see that a couple of years ago. It was a great show. Yeah, that was really interesting. And I'm trying to think, there's somebody else.
Alfie Brown's always got good shows.
Aye, you can see loads of cool fucking shit.
Do you know what for us first?
I was actually going to say Larry Dean, who mentioned earlier on. Like, I remember when I see Larry the day he got nominated for the best show, and I think we were there.
The woman
collapsed in front of us, and he dealt with it so fucking well and all that.
Yeah.
But this
is having like a seizure or some shit like during the show, and he was having to like, and that she was with her son, and he was like, "It's all right, don't just continue, it's
and he
fine."
Had to continue.
And he was like trying to put her in the position, like the recovery position and stuff, and he's like kind of comparing the room, like commenting on what's going on, but he's done it.
He handled it. I've never seen anyone handle something like that so well, and I would say how good that show was is that you left at the end and you'd forgot that even happened. And we've obviously known Larry for years, and he always smashes every gig that you ever see him do. But see, when I went to see that show, talking about something that's well put together and all comes together at the end and stuff, and it's pure funny. That was one of the best Fringe shows I've ever seen, and Larry's a fucking brilliant comic, and I was really blown away when I went to see that, because I always knew he was good, but I was like, fuck man, that was amazing. And that's the thing. See, when you go and see a comic and you just go like that, I could never do that. Like that's when you go.
I was hoping you'd be less good at structure.
Exactly. That's it. So. Anyway, guys, well, we hope, I suppose, that's whet your appetite a wee bit for the Edinburgh Festival this year. And if you'd like to come and see myself, Steve, or Stu, if what we're describing our shows as takes your fancy a wee bit. Steve, I suppose we've not really touched upon what you're going to do this year, which isn't straight stand-up as such.
I'm doing sketches and characters. I'm doing 45 minutes. So it's a work in progress, so it'll be quite loose, but I've done a few previews. It's been pretty fun.
Yeah, and if you've seen any of Steve's recent videos been put online, it's kind of similar to that, like with the characters and sketches and stuff. So you obviously, Steve, were famously the best actor in our sketch group that we used to have, and always fancy yourself as a wee bit of an actor, and so you're branching more out into that type of thing with your sketches and characters and stuff these days.
That's the plan. As soon as I can win a Golden Globe, then fucking quitting stand up. I'm not.
Once Steve's got the EGOT.
Yeah, I'm not doing fucking Montrose 29 people on a Saturday night anymore. I'm putting that out there.
Just like last weekend.
Yep.
That wasn't a hypothetical example.
That was a literal example from last weekend.
I saw a picture. Didn't look great.
And Stuart, do you want to give us a wee rundown of what your show's about?
It's hopefully just a funny stand-up show.
Yes.
It's about
not just a funny stand-up show. but it is a funny stand-up show.
Yes.
You know, it's an hour of jokes. It's about... Well, the problem is a lot of the stuff in it are kind of reveals, so I can't really say. It's
Right.
about loss, but it's not as sad as that sounds.
Can you talk about the title and why it's called that?
Yeah, it's called The Piche because I have alopecia, which came on suddenly last year. That's a reveal in the show, but not
Which
a
you
big one.
wouldn't know if you're watching this
Not from looking at me,
Jew's
but,
luscious locks, but
Yep.
You know,
That's
I'm
the
making
case.
it work.
aye, and it's a great. I've seen some of the bits from it, and it's an absolutely. It'll be a brilliant hour.
Thank you.
As I've been mentioning that, I'm just doing an hour of fucking jokes about different shit. It's called Original Sound, and you'll probably see it fucking on TikTok after the Fringe. But no, I'm really looking forward to it as well. And as you see, you can see all three of us at Monkey Barrel Comedy.
Yes.
In the Carnivore Rooms, which, as we have mentioned, is a steak restaurant, but will be run very well
Try
by
the steak.
Monkey Barrel. And the actual rooms in that venue are great, to be
Yeah,
fair. Like,
great
they're
rooms.
cracking rooms for
Nice
comedy.
steak.
And
Yeah.
they do have good steak as well, so do stick
We
around
get a
and get
discount.
that.
And the chef is sound.
It is very nice, so that's where we'll
to
be.
enjoy.
And if you're listening to this during the month of August, hopefully we might see you there.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
But thanks a lot for listening, guys, and we will be back during the festival. We'll probably be recording not from the studio, but from a location yet to be
Secret.
confirmed. We'll try and get some special guests in that are kicking about during the Fringe as well, so do look out for that too. But in the meantime, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in, and we should say as well, obviously remember to like and subscribe on YouTube.
Yes.
Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast,
Follow
Spotify.
us on that. All that
Follow us
carry
and
on.
all that on all the grams and the TikToks and all the fucking rest of the shite. And cheers for tuning in, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Cheers, guys.
Take care.
Cheers.